it's Jack from Cultaholic.com and we are back with yet more news on this lovely Wednesday. There's news from all over the place, so let's waste no further time and take a look at those lovely headlines. First of all, Impact Wrestling have teased the signing of several recently released WWE superstars. Next up, reports have emerged that Rob Gronkowski had massive heat backstage in WWE just before his release. And finally, Tony Khan has banned both Hulk Hogan and Linda Hogan from AEW events. So first of all, let's start off with this Impact Wrestling news because it could, emphasis on the word could, be a seismic event in the world wrestling landscape, I guess. So basically, the long and short of it is, before I get into the real specifics, Impact aired a video on last night's Impact, obviously, suggesting that they may be signing one or more recently released WWE superstars. In fact, the reason this video is so kind of shocking is just the sheer width and scope of recently released superstars it mentions. There's quite a few included. So the video depicts an unseen figure on a couch watching TV, and there's a news report about the WWE releases and wishing them the best in their future endeavors and all that sort of thing. And then it flashes up like so many examples of the people who were released. A lot of them, because Impact, they used to wrestle for TNA or Impact and they have the footage available to use. But some of them, I don't know, it's just a little bit more confusing. I really have no idea what's going on here. So let's just go through the people who were mentioned. I mean, they used past Impact-owned footage of Eric Young, Gallows and Anderson, Drake Maverick, Kurt Hawkins, Mike and Maria Kanellis, and EC3. And then very intriguingly as well, even though he's never wrestled for them, there was a reference to Rusev as well, because briefly they flashed up a Bulgarian flag. Now, I don't know if the format of this video, the fact that there's just one person watching the TV report, means that they're going to sign one person, they're going to make one big signing, or does the fact that they flashed up a lot of examples mean that they're going to make a huge batch of signings? I don't really know. If they did so, of course, it wouldn't be the first time that Impact/TNA tried to get ahead by signing a lot of WWE cast-offs. However, I'd suggest that might not be the worst move in this day and age, because, I mean, first of all, a lot of Impact has been removed by the presence of AEW as a very viable alternative to WWE. Secondly, in doing so, I think they would restore quite a lot of star power, or at least initially, to their roster. It's very interesting times. And I wonder whether you think that would be a good or a bad move. Let me know in the comments section down below. Obviously, I expect it will cost them quite a bit of money. The video package seemed to be included in the build towards Slammiversary, so could it be that at the Slammiversary pay-per-view, we see a huge shock debut of one or more recently released WWE superstars? Check out the video for yourself. It's available on Impact Wrestling's YouTube channel, and see what you think. Now let's talk about Rob Gronkowski, who obviously recently left WWE. He dropped the 24/7 title to R-Truth in his garden, and he's got a new NFL season to prepare for with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, apparently Gronk had quite a lot of heat backstage in WWE prior to his release. When I say backstage, I guess however backstage can be considered in the lockdown era. So a few weeks ago, WrestlingNews.co reported that Gronk was apparently terrified to do that dive he did off the platform at WrestleMania 36. Now, from a non-wrestling point of view, for someone who's never done a dive like that, I can totally understand it, because you're diving off a platform onto a pile of people. However, I guess you could say this is what Gronk signed up for. Maybe he should have been more prepared. Maybe he shouldn't have. Well, basically, I'll read what the report says. So apparently, according to WrestlingNews.co's original report, Vince McMahon, who is in his 70s, of course, did the dive for Gronk to prove that it was safe, and Gronk was still nervous about it, and then reportedly delayed production by 2 hours. Imagine that, like at the WrestleMania tapings, some NFL dude who's probably getting paid quite a bit delays, your day by 2 hours because they're scared to do a dive that a 70-year-old man did. The report also goes on to say that apparently Gronk bent his knees and fell like a toddler, which explains the low camera angle, the slightly dodgy look of it on the actual broadcast. And it turns out that Gronk did garner a lot of heat for this incident. Apparently, Fightful spoke to a number of sources within the company, and even those with a reputation of being easy, helpful, and good to work with all had negative things to say about working with Gronk after his WrestleMania fiasco. And then Fightful, I think, referred to WrestlingNews.co's report, saying that one source named Gronk an effing clown who we are so much better off without. Strong words there from various apparent members of the WWE inner circle. Yeah, it seems like Gronk did not endear himself to a lot of people. At the same time, maybe Gronk doesn't care because he's obviously an all-time great NFL player. He's continuing his career and, you know, probably has lots and lots of money from that. But it just goes to show, I guess, WWE's attitude towards outsiders and the interesting way in which athletes from other sports are perceived. We've obviously heard reports before of Ronda Rousey being met with an incredibly enthusiastic response backstage or an incredibly negative response backstage, depending on who you ask. We've also heard reports of Cain Velasquez, in total contrast to Gronkowski, being really highly regarded by many in WWE despite being an outsider learning the ropes of wrestling, just because he seemed like a stand-up guy. For example, he stayed behind in Saudi Arabia when everybody was stuck there and only a select few got away on an earlier flight. And I remember there was the implication that Velasquez didn't have to do that, but he did it because he valued his place within the team. He valued the way he was perceived by other members of the locker room. It's very interesting stuff, but stuff that Gronk just doesn't really seem to have paid much attention to. Next up, we know that WWE followed a lot of their production team during this whole release saga. However, it seems like one of their producers has transitioned entirely from a full-time producer role with a little part-time element of performance here and there into a full-time performance role and is just no longer a producer. The man in question is MVP, who did actually main event Raw this week in a match with Drew McIntyre. The match didn't last very long, MVP lost, but it is interesting to note that he came back to the company as a producer and suddenly is main eventing Raw. PW Insider's Mike Johnson says MVP has transitioned into performing full-time and is not currently working as a producer for the company, which, yeah, it is weird, isn't it? It is a strange little reversal of roles, I suppose. But then we have to take into account, what does performer mean? Because when I first read this report, I thought, oh, hang on, this means that MVP is going to be wrestling week in and week out. I don't think that's necessarily true. It could be, but I feel like it could be performance in other aspects. The reason I'm saying this is because obviously Bobby Lashley currently has MVP as his manager, and obviously being a manager does involve performance. That is a performer's role. MVP is a great promo. That again is very valuable. He could easily become an authority figure if they wanted to in the future. I don't think this necessarily means, despite what this week's Raw may have shown, that MVP is going to be a full-time wrestler once again. He is now a full-time performer. His storyline at the moment is a little bit interesting because he's currently obviously managing Bobby Lashley, the #1 contender to Drew McIntyre's WWE title. Should Lashley win, then MVP will be managing the champion. I can't quite see that happening just because Drew looks to be booked really strong at the minute and his reign isn't that old. But at the same time, even if Lashley loses, MVP still has some kind of weird storyline going on with Lana, Lashley's kayfabe wife. Lana seems to think she's been pushed out of the picture a bit by MVP. MVP's been pushing back a little bit. It's all very tense. Things could come to a head at Backlash, and then we'll have to see what happens for MVP after that. Next up, Tony Khan has banned Linda Hogan from AEW events, and in the process revealed that Hulk Hogan is also banned from AEW events. This comes in the wake of a very bad tweet from Linda Hogan, Hulk Hogan's ex-wife obviously, who said, it's regarding the whole protests in America at the moment and everything. She said, and these are the words of Linda Hogan, not myself, "Watching the looting, it's all Afro-Americans, not sure how robbing and stealing set the record straight, but if they want to be heard, they need to be civilized." It's just, oh God. Now Linda Hogan has since deleted the tweet, probably wisely because it was awful. However, Tony Khan did reply to it saying, "You've now joined your husband in being banned from all AEW shows. Congratulations." Now that is obviously, the correct decision by Tony Khan, but I would suggest that publicly tweeting that may be a little grab for attention and some positive publicity. I don't know, that's just speculation on my behalf. However, I feel like we didn't even know that Hulk Hogan was banned. I assume if that's the reason that Linda's banned, it's because of the racist remarks he made back in 2015. That's what you just have to assume, I guess. But yeah, they're both banned from shows. So now we have to think, well, would they be interested in going to shows? I'd suggest that Hulk Hogan probably would be willing to go to AEW, given the way that he interacted with Impact back in sort of the 2010 era, because even though he's a WWE icon and everything, he was never shy about jumping ship. We knew that back in the 90s anyway, didn't we? So I think Hulk Hogan may well have just bitten Tony Khan's hand off for an AEW appearance if that opportunity had presented itself. Linda Hogan, on the other hand, I don't really know if that's the case. And again, this is just in a magical kind of hypothetical world where AEW would want Linda Hogan on their shows, and now that she said this, Tony Khan's gone, "Oh, well, we can't have you now." Yeah, this is a weird story. I guess the real story behind all of this is that AEW are not willing to interact with Hulk Hogan. Linda Hogan here is kind of irrelevant. She made a disgusting tweet, and Tony Khan kind of used that to highlight, hey, Hulk Hogan's also not welcome on our shows. I think that not having Hogan in AEW kind of fits with the theme of the company. When they've brought back legends for an appearance, we've seen the likes of the great Muta, for example, with Tully Blanchard. Arn Anderson's got a key role. It's people who are respected for their in-ring craft, I think, a lot more than Hulk Hogan perhaps was. He was obviously more of a WWE style, larger-than-life sports entertainer. And another thing is that, you know, when these legends are involved in the AEW product, they're either used to get over current younger talent, or they're used in a non-wrestling role. They're used, like Muta was a judge, for example, during the Cody Jericho match. It's a delicate process, and I don't think that involving Hulk Hogan could have been delicate in any way. So finally, let's go to New Japan and talk about a wrestler who was set to have just a monumental 2020, one which got, you know, immediately derailed. The man in question is, of course, Tetsuya Naito, who is currently a double champion. He's both the IWGP Heavyweight Champion, the top belt in New Japan, and the secondary champion as well, the Intercontinental Champion. He won both those belts at Wrestle Kingdom in January, and has not had a chance really to show what he can do as the big figurehead of the company. Now, Naito was speaking to Tokyo Sports recently and entertained the idea of him being stripped of his titles because he's not defended them for months and months and months. It happened to Jon Moxley with the IWGP United States Championship, for example. So Naito said, last year there was a champion, Jon Moxley, who was forced to give up his belt because his plane didn't fly due to a tornado. If I'm going to be stripped like this, I'm going to go to another organization for at least one defense fight. He also wanted New Japan to announce its future policy as soon as possible. So it seems like he's not going to be stripped in the immediate future because of, you know, just all the circumstances going on. You'd have to strip everyone of their belts if that was the case. However, he wants to know what's going to happen, and if he is going to be stripped, the key story here is that Naito is entertaining the idea of defending the IWGP Heavyweight Championship and possibly the IC Championship as well in another promotion. And even though New Japan aren't running shows at this time, other promotions have been, other Japanese promotions such as All Japan and DDT. And unlike the wrestling scene in North America, where you would never see like WWE loan one of their wrestlers to AEW so they could defend a title, in Japan that could well be the case. You know, the relationship between promotions isn't quite as antagonistic, and I think that often deals are made between promotions that benefit both parties, and I think that that could well be the case with Naito here. I mean, in recent years in the G1 Climax, we've seen wrestlers from other promotions such as Marufuji from Noah crop up and take part in New Japan's annual big tournament extravaganza. So why not, you know, why not have their champion go to another promotion and defend the belt? I'm not suggesting he's going to lose. It would be monumental if he did. But, you know, I think it could benefit everyone involved. Anyway, that's it for the news today. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. My recommended match for today, if you've got New Japan World, do go back and rewatch maybe my favourite Naito match of all time. That is his G1 Climax final against Kenny Omega. I believe that match was from 2017, so do check that out if you have the chance. Thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on any of the stories in the comment section down below. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you soon.